Alrighty, let's bring it together, and just wherever you're at, we'll work with it from here. Part of the point of kind of making it condensed is I want you to see how much you can get done in a short amount of time, because I always get asked after these workshops, is this realistic to do in my morning devotion time? And I want you to see that, yes, you could, if you had half an hour, probably skim read Habakkuk and get a sense, big picture for what the book's about. And then you could start diving in, right? Now, you're not going to know everything, but you really can use these tools to get a sense of things in a fairly short amount of time. So it's part of the goal, so it's intentional that I'm frustrating you. All right, so let's start with, I'm guessing we all agree the first section starts in Habakkuk 1:1. Now, just a quick note here. This is a little bit art as well as science, all right? So we might not all put it exactly the same, and that's okay. But what the hope is that by doing this exercise, you're starting to see the flow of the whole book. And hopefully you're starting to learn to try to see that there's things in the text that help you see those sections, right? You're not just making it up out of your own brain. You're trying to see things in the text. So even if we disagree with each other, it'll be a good conversation to see that we're probably all seeing the basic same flow. It's just a matter of how you maybe divvy it up a little bit. But all right, does anybody want to throw out where they think the first kind of section ends and why?
We were dealing in bigger chunks, so we went to 319.
Yeah. For half a second, I believed you there, Adam. Half a second.
Everything you say
Yeah.
makes it sound like it's the answer.
Yeah. All right. So other than Adam's wisecrack, do we have any serious thoughts here?
Went to verse 11.
Went to verse 11. Okay.
But then we have a sub.
And then we have
a
sub
sub-chunk.
Okay. So what were your sub chunks here?
1 to 4 and 5 to 11.
So 1 to 4, and then 1, 5 to 11. Okay. Did a lot of other groups have basically a similar thing? Yeah. So all right. Love it. So why did you guys make the breaks here, this table? Why did you make the break here? And how would you summarize this?
Go ahead.
Q&A, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so kind of a round of dialogue. So you notice Habakkuk's talking, then God's talking. Right now, obviously, we're kind of helped by our Bibles and a quotation mark at verse 5. But even if you didn't have that, if you read it, you'd be like, okay, it's clearly Habakkuk talking, oh Lord, how long shall I complain, da-da-da. And then you'd be like, look among the nations and see, okay, who's talking? I'm doing a work in your days. I'm raising up the Chaldeans. Oh, this clearly can't be Habakkuk. This is God. So that's how you would be able to notice it's a change of person, even if your Bible didn't put a highlight there, okay? But all right, so you've got
Plus, there's these titles at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Those are very inspired. They are helpful. I do find them helpful, but sometimes they're not. So just always hold them loosely. So how did you summarize this section? Or your subsections even?
We talked about justice, there's this evil going on in justice.
Yep.
God's like, this is how I'm going to take care of it.
Yep. So,
God
Unexpected
will
answer to
judge
justice.
injustice in an unexpected way.
okay, so Hab complains about injustice. I'm going to call him Hab for short. And then God's unexpected, you said?
Unexpected judgment, yeah.
Unexpected judgment. Okay. Good. All right. How about a different group? What would be your next section?
I called it the why me section.
The why me section? Okay. And that would be from 112 to where?
Focusing on what Habakkuk's dealing with.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. And where does that section go to, you think?
Are you talking about the first section?
Yeah.
Oh, the first. Okay, sorry. Talking about the first. Yes. The first section is Habakkuk's very what's going on? This doesn't make any sense, right? Yep. All right. So he kind of raises a complaint. God says, I've got a solution. And Habakkuk says, perfect. All my questions have been answered.
End of book.
End of book. No. So, all right. So this next section starts at 112. Where does that section go to? You said 2:5? Okay. What made you say it to 2:5?
That was the end of God's second response to his second complaint.
Okay. So would every other group agree, or did anybody have a different thought? I'm going to put this down provisionally here.
We talked a lot about it because the woes definitely seem like
Okay,
But
yep.
God, we think it's still God talking. So we just left it a big section of God's answers all the way to the end of chapter 2.
Okay, so you would say to 220. Okay, but then maybe you guys would see like,
Subsection though.
yeah, so a subsection might be like 2:2 to 2:5, and then 2:6 to 20 as subsections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you guys are all noticing, because there's definitely a change when the woes come in, but it's still kind of part of God's speech, right? God's saying like, he's quoting what these other people are going to say, right? So then that leaves, what's kind of the subsection before this? 1:12 to where? I guess 2:1, right? And so we've got 1:12 to 2:1. You guys all picked up on this as Habakkuk talking, right? And how would you summarize what Habakkuk's saying in 1:12 to 2:1?
I don't like that answer. God, that is not a good and just answer here.
Yeah, Hab doesn't like God's solution. That's a good way of summarizing it, okay? And then,
Richer kind of deal.
what?
He's kind of like asking, are you letting the rich get richer or the wicked
Yeah.
get so wicked?
Why are you letting somebody who's more wicked
Yeah,
push us?
it doesn't make any sense to Habakkuk, right? Yep. And then how would you guys summarize maybe 2:2 to 2:5 or 2:6 to 2:20, or the combined of that section? Any thoughts?
The first part seems to be describing the Chaldeans and kind of their wickedness. Then the second part kind of seems like God's answer in terms of, and I'm also going to judge the Chaldeans.
Yeah. So, all right. So God will judge also the Chaldeans, who, again, just a reminder, are also the Babylonians. It's interchangeable names for them. So yeah. And then that would leave, our next section is chapter 3, verse 1 to, what would you guys see as a big chunk here? How about this table back here with Jason back here? What did you guys have?
He's pointing at me. We kind of went back and forth with that.
Yep.
A little bit with chapter 3, just taking 3 as a whole, or breaking it 1 to 16 and then 17 to 19 as
Yep.
a separate section.
So you guys are definitely noticing there's a change in 16 through 17 and 19, right? So agreed. That might be more of like a scene change inside an episode. So I think I'd probably do 3:1 to 19. And just the reason being is that if we've said that the sections are based off who's talking, Habakkuk's doing the whole talking in 3:1 through 19, right? So it makes sense to keep that together. But when we look at chapter 3 later, that's going to be helpful to notice as we see the structure flow of this section in smaller subsections. That's where that's going to come in handy, right? Yep. So how would you guys summarize chapter 3:1 through 19?
God is mighty.
God is mighty. Okay. What else would you say, or how else would you summarize it? Because that's true. We definitely see this big vision of God, right?
And how to respond to evil.
How to respond to.
You know, to be able to praise the Lord and people.
Okay. So here, I'll put these as that God is mighty. So Habakkuk gives praise.
He finally accepts God's answer and is willing to wait for the answer and rejoice in the meantime.
Yeah, accepts God's answer. Okay.
Make sure that's on there.
Yeah. What?
So make sure that's on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at this, we've got a helpful now flow of the whole book, don't we? And let's think about the beginning and end. Where does Habakkuk begin?
In distress.
In distress, right? You could say lamenting, you could say complaining. There's lots of different words you could use, but he's clearly very distraught, right? Where does Habakkuk end? confidence, rejoicing, praise, right? Trust, right? Does anything actually change in his life? No. So how does Habakkuk change from here to here? What does the structure show us? What is the method that God uses to change Habakkuk without changing the circumstances? Reminders, yeah. Yeah, and he just talks to him, right? I mean, just think about this right now. Habakkuk goes to the God who made everything and says, I really don't like what you're doing. And God doesn't zap him with lightning. Instead, God engages in a conversation with him. He answers his questions. He reminds him. He shows him what's coming. He calls him to trust him. And that's where Habakkuk gets.
Do you think it's kind of similar in the sense where how we're looking into it, we're looking back to this minor prophet and doing the study?
Yep.
Whereas Habakkuk himself, it's like we're kind of in our world thinking it's like, oh, all this injustice is,
Yep.
and we're going back to this. And so do you think it's like Habakkuk kind of doing similarity, where like all these injustices, and he's looking back, he's seeing the worlds around,
Yeah.
he's seeing what Babylon's probably about to do.
Yep.
And then he's also doing the exact same thing we are, but with just a different thing to look back onto.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the general message here, right, and we'll talk more about this when we get to application, but the main point of the author still applies to us today. It's going to maybe apply slightly differently, right? But the main call of we can move from distress at what's going on around us to a rejoicing, deep trust in God without anything changing is possible for us too. And it's going to be possible in the same way. It's as we wrestle with God, as we talk to him. And isn't that encouraging that God invites us into that? Right? He invites us to dialogue with him. He invites us to wrestle with him. He invites us to hear his voice. And at the end of the day, say, okay, that gives me enough to trust you. I mean, isn't that something we all need to be reminded of, like, all the time?
That's why this is one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
Well, and it reminds me of like Psalms a lot.
Yes.
Like Psalms, a lot of times David starts and he's like complaining about everything and
Yep.
then ends with praising.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much like
And
the
then
Psalms, yeah.
changed in
Yep.
a circumstance yet.
Yep. But just being with God reorients us, right? And that God is so patient to journey with us in our doubts and our questions, right? I mean, isn't this the kind of God we want to be in relationship with, right? Do you have a comment too?
Yeah, I was just kind of skimming back over the third chapter and noticed, like, the word salvation seems quite prominent. And
Yeah.
wonder if maybe that is actually really important to, like, highlight for the third chapter theme.
Right, that he...
Because in a sense, it almost seems to them, because he says, like, in verse 13, you went out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. And later on, when he says he's rejoicing, he says, I will take joy in the God of my salvation. And that kind of seems to be answering back to the beginning of, like, God will save
Yep.
those who are experiencing that injustice.
Yes.
I was just wondering if, like, that was central to maybe.
I think that's a great point. I think when we dive into chapter 3, let's circle back around to that. So I think that's a great point. And this is what will happen too, is as you work through the book now in detail, we could at the end come back to this and say, okay, we could fine tune this, right, a bit more, because now we've done it. But I hope you can see that now that we have the map of where the book's going, it's going to better help us work through each section.